Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2018 animated comic book film, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Now, I know I am crazy late when it comes to sharing my thoughts on this film, but I got a reason for that. It's one part stubbornness and another part just kind of letting it fall in between the cracks and not wind up on my watch list. What I mean by stubbornness is I didn't really care for the trailer when it came out. I was very leery of the animation style. I thought it looked kind of janky and not very fluid and looked kind of rough, and I wasn't super big on the whole idea of a Spider-Verse like other people were, and I also wasn't a enormous fan of Miles Morales. So all of that combined together made me choose to skip this movie. And I didn't actually watch it until a few days ago for the first time. And I got to be honest, folks, I loved this. I thought this was hands down the best Spider Man film that I've seen to date. Yes, better than Sam Raimi's Spider Man movies, even better than The Amazing Spider Man 2, which I really enjoy. And that was actually my personal favorite and pick for the best Spider Man movie to me until I saw this film. Because this just really nailed the feel and the flow of Spider Man and the character of Spider Man. Even though it wasn't really necessarily focusing solely on Peter, it was more of Miles's movie with a little bit of Gwen Stacy and her Spider Woman character, as well as some other different versions of Spider Man in different universes. It still just really captured something that I felt was missing in the MCU Spider Man films, or even in some of the other Spider Man live action adaptations. Raimi's films, the Tobey Maguire, or the Andrew Garfield films. And as somebody who grew up reading specifically 90s Spider Man comics and a little bit of like the early 2000s stuff, this is the kind of storytelling and humor and wit and energy and fun that I remember reading from those comics. So that's why for me this is easily the best Spider-Man film that I've seen to date. And I'm just kicking myself. I am just really really hard on myself right now for not giving this film a shot earlier and actually taking a chance and taking a leap of faith and just going to see this movie in the theater when it came out on the largest screen possible with 3D, because I heard that this film in particular was really incredible in 3D in the theater, and I missed out on that. And that honestly is kind of a bummer, but it is what it is. Whatever happened happened, and I'm just glad that I finally got to check this out and gave it a shot, because otherwise I would have been missing such a spectacular and just wonderful experience, let alone a Spider-Man movie. So it's directed by three different people: Bob Persichetti, Peter Ramsey, and Rodney Rothman. And I think all three of them just did some really great, just stellar work with this animated film. This movie is very unique when it comes to its animated style. It was very one of a kind when it came out in 2018. And nowadays, there's a lot of other sort of projects, including a sequel, that are utilizing the same kind of art style. But when this movie came out, it was completely fresh, completely innovative, and one of a kind. And the three directors, they really do fit together very well. They don't have styles that clash with one another. And the film just has a lot of really just fluid, just really well shot scenes and just great bits of animation that'll leave your jaw dropped wide open. The action sequences, they're paced well, they're set up well. When it comes to the style or the shots, they're not too hard to follow. They're not too um, blurry or there's too much going on. There's just so much to really just enjoy and be captivated by when it comes to this film's visuals. And I really do feel that this was every bit of a deserving title or film when it comes to all the accolades that it received for its visuals alone. Um, it's really crazy to me that you can have three different people involved and directing something like this, and they just fit together seamlessly and they collaborate with one another in a way that is kind of akin to the other spider men or the other people, the other heroes in the Spider Verse teaming up and working alongside one another throughout this movie. So it's kind of fitting that you have three people who are behind the camera or working on the direction and all of the other aspects of the film that involve just making each scene flow from one sequence to the next. And there's a certain gracefulness to it when it comes to how things transition, and there's also a certain just really cool and just wild nature to it. And in some ways there's kind of moments of genuine controlled chaos when it comes to the animation because there's different animation styles and different kind of color schemes and all of these other things that are coupled together to create the film's really vibrant and unique visual style. But I definitely do feel that this movie wouldn't be as spectacular as it is if you didn't have a really great script by Phil Lord and Rodney Rothman. I think this screenplay takes something that is just incredibly ambitious when it comes to this Spider-Verse concept and handles it with not only a lot of appreciation and respect for the source material and the fans, but also handles things in a way where they're not too messy and also injects a lot of genuine humanity and soul into the script. You genuinely do grow to appreciate and like Miles as a character as you follow him on his journey to becoming a hero. And I think it's honestly a better way to handle a Spider Man origin story than any other Spider Man film. I honestly feel that way because of just how it doesn't necessarily put the origin aspect in the forefront. It gives it to you, but it's fairly condensed, but still effective and efficient. It's not stretched out like the origin is in some of the other adaptations of Spider-Man. The whole screenplay just has a lot of really nice moments for Miles as well as other characters to really shine and to really feel like they have some real weight to the story. When it comes to like Gwen Stacy or even the other Peter Parker, the one who's older and is divorced from Mary Jane, and so on and so forth. And there is some room for the other Spider people, like the Anime Girl and Spider-Man Noir and Spider Pig, Peter Porker, and those are a lot of moments though where they don't really have a lot of character depth, but it's not necessarily needed. But they do have moments to shine though. Like Peter Porker gets a fun moment where he takes down Scorpion. You have Spider Gwen gets her moment taking out the female Doc Ock that's in Miles's universe. Uh, the um, the alternate Peter gets his moments when he's mentoring Miles, and he has his moments of heroism. And I think the way that everything's all balanced together could have really turned into a very tangled web, but it's not that case at all. Like it's really smooth and just feels very calculated, and for the most part isn't jumbled up in any capacity, which is really impressive considering how many different working parts, how many different characters, how many different things are going on when it comes to this film's screenplay. But I will say this, some of the humor at times is kind of hit and miss for me. That's one aspect of the script that I don't feel is necessarily as strong as some of the other elements. Um, But even the villain in this, the way that they handle Kingpin really humanized him, and I thought that was really a nice change of pace when it comes to how Kingpin is normally portrayed in a lot of Spider-Man comics. They really made you kind of honestly sort of sympathize with him a little bit, which I think is kind of difficult since he's usually portrayed as a very violent, typical gangster kind of character. And it was fun to see different alternate versions of Spider-Man villains, like Scorpion and Doc Ock, and even other villains that you don't really see a lot in movies or a lot period, like Tombstone. And it was fun to see the different types of spider people, spider heroes. Spider-Man Noir, I would say, is probably my favorite out of all of them, other than Spider-Gwen and the other Peter. And even with Peter Parker, there was an interesting sort of thing they did with a blonde Peter, who was the Spider-Man in Miles's universe. Who, when Miles got bit by the spider, he winds up dying, and Miles then takes his place. And I thought that was definitely something that was really interesting, and definitely a path that I didn't necessarily see coming. And I think the way they incorporate all the different dimensions and even the whole stuff with the collider and everything, I think is relatively well handled. And one thing I definitely want to mention as well is the relationship between Miles and his father. The way that that is written in particular is very touching, and I thought the writers did a tremendous job with that. So, yeah, I mean it's a really good script. Like you got some great moments of spectacle and tension and excitement and thrills. You got a few laughs, a few chuckles. You got a lot of creativity, a lot of imagination, and a lot of heart. And that goes a long way. One scene in particular to me that is arguably the film's biggest standout, other than the human moments, the moments of frailty between Miles and his father. Other than those sequences, the sequence that really stood out to me, that really made me fall in love with this movie, is when Miles first becomes Spider-Man. Just the way that that was written, the way that it was handled, I thought was just amazing. I thought it was great, and I thought it was epic and triumphant, and it was just a really great scene. Now, speaking of other things that are great about the film, I mean, it's got a really impressive voice cast. I mean, Shameik Moore as Miles Morales. I honestly think his voice work is some of the best that I've seen in any animated production in the past few years. I think it's that strong. He just captures the character brilliantly. The rebellious nature of Miles, as well as the warm nature of his character, the reason why he's likable and personable and relatable and fun to watch. He's charismatic and charming, and he can definitely pull off saying a one-liner or two. Jake Johnson as Peter B. Parker, I absolutely adored and just loved every minute of his performance as Peter B. Parker in this. I think it's honestly his best work. It's his best acting that he's done in anything. It was really nice to see him in this, and I mean, nice to hear him in this capacity, because he's known for doing a lot of just jokey characters that you don't take seriously or annoying comic relief in other movies. So it was nice to see him tackle something like this and really make a performance that is just instantly and immediately endearing. Chris Pine, he was fine as the Spider-Man, the Peter from Miles's universe. He was only in it for a little bit. I don't think I would really be able to handle his take on Peter if he did it any longer, because it's a typical sort of just bland Chris Pine performance. But for what the role had, it was more than enough. Hailee Steinfeld, I thought she was really special as Gwen Stacy. Had a certain charisma and charm to her as well, and the chemistry between her and the voice actor Shameik Moore. I thought the two of them just had a really electric chemistry with one another. Um, Mahershala Ali as Aaron Davis, the Prowler. That's the other thing. That's another aspect of the script I completely forgot to mention. But since I'm talking about the Prowler, I might as well mention this my thoughts on the Prowler here. I've always liked the Prowler when it comes to that character, and it was really cool to see him in a movie. But I love what they did with this character. They made this character more personal. They made it into something that really felt like there was higher stakes, and they essentially revamped and retooled the whole Uncle Ben storyline and shifted it with Uncle Aaron when it comes to his relationship with Miles. And I thought that was really sweet, and I thought it really added a nice tragic touch to their story, and to the whole arc with Prowler and Miles, and the scenes where Miles knows that he's the Prowler, but Aaron doesn't know that Miles is Spider-Man, are some really tense and effective moments because of just how well written this dynamic is with these characters. And Ali's voiceover work is also really excellent. Really brings a lot to that character. Really brings that character to life on screen. Um, in particular, just how he shows the conflict, the inner conflict of the Prowler, and what's going on in his head when he's realizing that Miles is Spider-Man, and he's this Spider-Man that he's been trying to kill for this entire time. Brian Tyree Henry as Jefferson Davis, Miles's father, just really just stoic and stern, but also willing to kind of crack a joke, and a really just strong father figure, and not afraid to have moments where he allows his character to break down and be vulnerable. And the way that he showed that vulnerability with just his voice in the sequence where he's just speaking to Miles behind the door is heartbreaking, and it just speaks to how talented of a actor Brian Tyree Henry is, for him to just showcase all of that and provide all of that emotion without really using anything but his voice. Lily Tomlin, it was a lot of fun to hear her voice May Parker. I thought that was a perfect casting choice. It was just nice to hear Lily Tomlin's sarcastic voice, and just she works so well within this film and this overall universe. Luna Lauren Velez is Rio. Miles' mother, I want to give her credit as well. I like her spark. I like how she handles the character, and really makes that character feel very, let's just say, real. It doesn't really sound like, oh, she's just doing a voiceover. It feels like a real character, just like what everyone else in the voice cast does, other than, like John Mulaney is a cartoon. But that's the whole point. He's supposed to play a cartoon, which is fine. Um, I didn't know Zoe Kravitz is the one that voiced Peter Parker's wife, MJ. That's an interesting casting, but she works a little bit that she's tasked to do. Um, John Mulaney was a lot of fun. Like his take on Peter Porker really reminded me of like an old '90s animated cartoon, like Tiny Toon Adventures or like Animaniacs. Like it had that kind of vibe to it. Like he was one of the members of the Animaniacs or whatever. Kimiko Glenn is Penny Parker. It's kind of there. I understand the whole point of it is like anime Spider-Man, and the young Japanese girl has a robot spider. Not necessarily a robot spider, but she has a robot that has a spider in it, so it's a spider robot, and she's not really necessarily the one that has the powers, but it was just one of those things where it was just kind of take it or leave it kind of thing. I didn't find it as obnoxious as other people did, but it was all right. I would say Nicolas Cage, out of all of the new Spider people, other than Gwen Stacy, was the one that definitely stood out the most. Nicolas Cage even said that he patterned this take on Spider-Man after like Humphrey Bogart, and he can definitely hear that. And you could tell that he had a lot of fun with this, and it was cool to hear Nicolas Cage voice a character in an animated movie, because I don't know if he even did that prior to this film. Catherine Hahn as Liv Octavius, for what she was asked to do, was fine. Kind of gave me sort of Pixar villain vibes, but it was fine. It was all right. Liev Schreiber as Kingpin, I would say he left a little bit more of an impression on me, but I still wouldn't say the voiceover was like amazing or necessarily on par with the rest of the solid or more memorable voiceovers in the film. And when it comes to other aspects of the movie that are worth mentioning, I mean, you got the editing by Robert Fisher Jr., which I really felt was very kinetic and just really added a little extra boost to the movie, especially when it comes to the sequences that had a lot of the film's visual spectacle, or the action sequences. The music by Daniel Pemberton, I really thought that score was stellar, especially some of the main, really the main beats, the main theme for Miles in particular. I loved. I even liked some of the songs, even some of the rap songs. Danger, I thought that one in particular was a good track. And for a film that's, I think it's like an hour and 50 minutes or 50 something minutes, I thought it was paced really well. I didn't really feel there was a ton of pacing problems. I felt it went by at a quick enough pace and was, for the most part, compelling enough and interesting enough when it comes to its visuals and when it comes to the different characters and different versions of Spider-Man that appeared throughout the movie. And the villains were good enough, and so was the whole overarching plot, which is trying to stop the super collider from destroying the universe. Yeah, and for a film that cost like 90 million, like it looked great too for the budget. So, yeah, I really can't sing enough praises for this movie. I would say this, yeah, not only the coolest Spider-Man epic ever, it's one of the best movies of the year by Peter Travers. Like I agree with that. This is definitely one of the best films from 2018. And honestly, one of the best animated films in the past few years, or maybe even 10 years. Um, I haven't really felt this impressed by an animated film since I saw The Incredibles back when that came out. So yeah, I love this. Honestly, I can see myself watching this multiple times and not really getting tired of it just for the visual style alone and just for the world that it creates and allows to unfold before your eyes. So anyway, yeah, that's my thoughts on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.